What is up, guys? Fato82 coming at you with some raid cam footage from the US Rustopia server. Rustopia is a vanilla Rust server, and this is a vanilla Rust raid. What you're looking at right now is a raid team which consists of two separate clans, the YPB clan and the LQM clan. They've pooled their resources and manpower together for the purposes of this raid, and they're going to be hitting two separate bases simultaneously, the bases of the YAR group and the base of the BHC group. The raiders have taken a strategic and a risky path to the compound by using the water. The water gives them the element of surprise as it's the least predictable path for the raid team to take, but it's also a risky proposition in that it's very difficult to navigate the water and difficult to use your weapons when you're swimming. The raiders have emerged from the water and have lost the element of surprise, but they continue to use best practices using the natural formation of the landscape to their advantage. By using the rocks for cover, the defenders have a very difficult time getting an accurate count of the number of raiders, and the raiders gain added protection from the rocks. The raiders have broken into two separate fire teams, with LQM taking the high ground and focusing on hitting the base of the BHC clan, while YPB moves into position on the coast and is beginning to hit the YAR group's cave base. As YPB moves into position, take note of how YAR's compound is structured. There's an outer perimeter wall that needs to be breached in order to gain access to the base, and there are two separate flank bases that the raiders have to contend with, one positioned on a rock within the main compound, and another high on a rock outside of the compound that gives the defenders a tactical vantage point. Flank bases are very important to incorporate in base designs, as we've seen in previous raid cams like World War Rustopia. The raid team, guys, has broken into two separate teams, and they're hitting the bases simultaneously. This, I think, is a smart tactical decision, as it causes the defenders to have to focus on defending their own bases and doesn't give them a lot of time to pool resources together or to communicate with one another. And YPB has made short work of that door with a rocket launcher, which isn't surprising. They're now inside the courtyard of the YAR's compound. What you want to take note of here, guys, are a couple things. The Corys and the pump jacks are actually offering the raiders a bit of protection here, so it's a little bit of a blind spot for the defenders, and it's a place that the raiders can hide behind to gain some cover and to kind of gather their thoughts as to where they need to go. The defenders are doing exactly what they should in a situation like this. They're remaining calm and collected. They're not rushing out of the cave trying to engage the raiders on the ground. They're utilizing their flank bases as best they can, and they're waiting to see exactly what's going on here. Take note, guys, that the base is still wood at this point. It's still under construction. This is relatively early in the wipe cycle on the server, so raids of this magnitude usually don't happen this early on. What is going on here is that flank base is being utilized perfectly, and the raiders are trying to take that out while a team pushes forward and tries to get into the cave. Caves are both predictable and difficult to raid. It might seem like that's a contradictory statement, but the cave bases are difficult in that once you get in there, there's one way in and one way out. So if you get trapped in there, you're a bit screwed. You're going to notice they put some C4 on that front door, so they're going to start pushing into that cave. And the raid team members are making their entry into that cave. Some doors were left open in here, but closed right at the last minute, but not before some more C4 could be thrown in there. That C4 was likely meant for that door, but it ended up going in here and hitting a wall. The defender thankfully moved out of that area before that C4 went off, but he came back to survey the damage and just see exactly what it had done. The raid team now is not paying attention to that flank base. They may have taken out the member there, but the other flank base outside of the compound is sending some suppressing fire back towards that raid team. The raid team is continuing to rocket the outside of that cave base, which is helping them to get a better vantage point in terms of what's going on inside that cave. So they're not all rushing into the cave right now, even though there's an opening, which is a smart decision. They're trying to take out some of the ability of the defenders to defend by taking out the top part of the cave. So by pushing into the cave, this is now where stuff gets interesting. The flank bases no longer become something they have to worry about when they're inside the cave, but there are new sets of worries once you're in the cave. And the raiders are taking their time at this point. They know that the defenders are stuck inside that cave, and they're really not concerned too much about what's going on in the courtyard here. They do have to worry again about those flank bases, but they're just taking their time. They're sending some rockets into that base, and they're trying to clear out a pathway in the cave and open up as much space as possible before they decide to roll in. A smart decision, guys. As we were talking about the predictability of cave bases, there's only so much space to utilize in a cave, so once you learn how to build in a cave, you kind of know where to go for a loot room, and you kind of know where the choke points are going to be. And now we're taking a look at the raid that's going on simultaneously with the cave base raid, which is the BHC clan's compound up here. LQM has done a lot of gunfighting up here. We've heard a lot of gunshots going off, and quite a bit of fighting has happened up here. It looks like LQM has pushed the BHC members back to their main loot room, which is down here on the bottom part of the base, and they're continuing to fight down here. BHC is fighting tooth and nail, keeping the raiders at bay. And it's very difficult in a situation like this because they're pushed back in their own base, and it looks like there's a bit of a choke point going on here. You'll notice that there's some doors missing. I'm not sure if they've been blown off or if the base was still under construction because, again, it is early in the wipe cycle, but a lot of gunfire is going off in here. What you guys want to take note of are that the individuals wearing the road sign armor are the LQM clan, and the other individuals in here are the BHC clan. They did leave a door open to their loot room, which is something that they probably needed to do to gain access to supplies to re-gear, but it's a little bit risky. If the raiders gain access to that room, they're going to have an easy time getting to that loot. And you'll notice, guys, that there's more LQM members coming down the stairwell here and just sort of zerging that room, making a rush in there, and they've actually overtaken the defenders, they've overtaken the BHC clan. Because that loot room door was left open, they do have clear access to that loot room. And guys, I just want to impress upon you the importance of not worrying about looking at crates or worrying about loot in the middle of a raid. You'll notice one of the members stopping here to look inside crates. Don't do that, guys. That's a bad move. And worry about those sleeping bags, worry about other rooms that you might not be aware of before you even look in a crate. On the other side of that loot room is a room that was a spawn point, respawn point for the BHC clan members. They're in here with their sleeping bags. They have minimal supplies in here. They're looking to a sleeper's body to see what they can do. They have revolvers. One member has an AK. One member actually has a sword. They're going to try to take the fight back out into that main room and see what they can salvage, but it's going to be very difficult. And as you can see, the raiders who are better geared and had more resources gunned them down quickly, leaving that door open. So they're going back in there, and they're going to make short work of those sleeping bags with the axes. By chopping up the sleeping bags, guys, if you're not aware of it, it takes away the spawn point for those members. And now we're moving back down to the cave base where more gunfire is going on down here. When we were up in BHC's base, we heard a heck of a lot of gunfire going on down here, and the flank bases are still being utilized. There's still defenders up there, and the raid team at this point has actually moved into the cave base itself. So the fight has been taken inside. What you guys want to be aware of in terms of what's going on here is that during the course of looking at what was going on at the BHC camp, at the BHC base, and in terms of what's going on down here right now, is that the YAR group actually called in some other allies, which are from the ZFG clan. So what this has caused to happen is the raiders, the raid team, YPB, is actually caught inside that cave base. So they're stuck in the cave between the defenders, YAR, and then the allies that YAR called in for support, which is the ZFG clan. This has put the raid team in a bit of a predicament. They're still in the fight, they're still very well geared, very well armed, but they're stuck inside a cave.
Move everybody out of this room. Everybody out. Out of this room. Out of this room. Ethan, out of this
So they have two choices. They can push their way back out and retreat, or they can start pushing through the cave, trying to claim that cave and get to the loot. It looks like they're choosing to get to the loot, and they're continuing to move into that base, and they're keeping an eye on the front door to try to see what's going on with the allies who are coming in. But this is very risky because at this point they haven't fully cleared the cave, and there are members outside who are allied with this group who are coming in. Now you guys might wonder, well, LQM just made short work of the BHC clan up there. Where are they? Well, after talking to some members after this raid occurred, it looked like LQM decided that they needed to return the loot that they had gained from that raid back to their base, so they weren't able to come down and assist YPB in the cave. What that kind of caused was a shift in the dynamic here. Apparently, LQM did send a message to YPB and said fall back, but at that point it was already too late and YPB was stuck inside the cave. Make note, guys, that in the cave there's a lot of small rooms which create a lot of bottlenecks, a lot of choke points, and if you get stuck in there and a door is shut, you're pretty much screwed at that point in time. So what you're looking at here, guys, is outside the BHC clan has regrouped. They've come down to assist the ZFG and YAR and help take out the remaining members of the raid team who are in the cave. And at this point in time, the dynamic of the raid has shifted greatly in terms of now being in favor of the defenders. With the help of their allies, they're able to reclaim this base. What they're doing now is methodically going through and surveying the damage that's been done in the cave, looking at looting the bodies of the raid team members. You'll notice somebody just snatched one of those cool new masks that is part of the Steam Marketplace off a body, but they're getting the loot that was taken back, and they're now focusing on repairing the base and taking out any of the defenders, or raiders rather, who are choosing to come back to the fight. Now guys, the critical mistake that was made here in terms of the raid team is they didn't set up a proper staging base or raid base. You've seen in previous raid cams that typically when a large compound is to be raided, a staging base will be constructed, which is a base that consists of loot that you can use to come back to the fight with. So if you die, you respawn in that base, you can come back with another assault rifle, more armor, more rockets, more C4, whatever it may be. And in this case, that wasn't done. I'm not sure why. Maybe it was because the raid team was so massive that they didn't think they needed to, but it's always a best practice, and you never know which way a raid's going to go. So what you're taking a look at right now is the Girth crew. Girth did show up. He wasn't allied with any of the members here, but he came up and posed a bit of a problem to the defenders as well as the raiders, and the raiders were very much at that point out of the game. They had sleeping bags that had been put around the perimeter of the base, but those sleeping bags were taken out, which means that then when they respawn, they were back at their main base, which is very difficult to rejoin the fight when you're back across the map. So guys, at this point, there's just a little gunfire that's still going on here. The defenders are working on resecuring their base. They're re-gearing. They're coming back out to make sure there's not another raid team moving in. And they're repairing their base, so they're putting that cave base back together. So guys, as always, I really hope you enjoyed this raid cam footage from the US Rustopia server. As always, I enjoy making it and bringing it to you. It's always interesting to see raids, to kind of analyze them, to see what the best practices are. And I really think this was a great raid. I think that the raiders did a great job, and I think that the defenders did a great job. If the raiders had built a staging base, I think it would have been a much longer fight, and it would have been a larger battle of attrition. But because that raiding base wasn't put in place, it was really game over once the raiders died. So guys, what we learned here today is the importance of those raid bases, and if you want to come back into the fight, invest a little time and resources into doing that. You'll notice here that the raiders are, or the defenders rather, are having a good party here. They brought out the guitars, they're having a good time, they're celebrating, they are repairing their base, and they're living to fight another day. The favor was returned, and the Rusty Pirates, the R group, did actually take the fight back to YPB's compound. I wasn't online to catch that, but go ahead and check out Rusty Pirates gaming channel. They will be uploading soon the footage of that raid. All right, guys, Fado82, peace.